What is going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode. We were not recording yesterday. If you follow us on social, specifically Instagram, we did post out our waiver wire watch list. Shovit was a little under the weather. Shishot got busy, but we are back today. Shovit popping some Dayquil, feeling a little bit better. We got our start sits, our boom busts, our hidden gems, and our weekly pick'ems as we prepare y'all for week 6 preview. Shovit, how are you feeling, man?
Besides the sickness, I'm feeling good, man. I'm sick, and my players are hurt, so I'm digging deep in free agency, trying to figure out who I can replace for guys like Davante Adams, guys like Nico Collins, and it's tough. It's week 6 of football. People are getting hurt, but that's just the climate of fantasy football.
To give the viewers and listeners perspective on your situation, before the season, we saw your wide receiver room and was like, holy shit, you drafted Tyreek Hill, Davante Adams, and then you got Nico Collins. That seems insane. And here we are 6 weeks later. Tyreek Hill doesn't have a quarterback. Nico Collins is on the IR with a hamstring, and Davante Adams is faking a hamstring injury until he gets traded. So it is what a whirlwind 6 weeks into the season, and you just got news that your other receiver, Rashid Shaheed, got added to the injury report. So you're legitimately looking at a roster with 0 startable wide receivers right now, Sherman.
Yeah, I'm looking at 3 running backs. Is my Ford, Hubbard, Akers if Mixon doesn't play. Obviously Wicks is there. That's like one hope with Dontavian Wicks. I'm like, okay, he's looking like the wide receiver 2, unless Dobbs comes in, looks hot this week. We'll see. But if Shaheed's out, I'm gonna have to drop Shaheed and find another receiving option. And it's tough, man. It's not looking so good. So we'll see how this week plays out.
Yeah, with injuries, with bye weeks now starting, and with our benches only being 4 deep, last week Riaz couldn't start a running back. He had the entire Lions team on bye. You can't drop any of those guys, so he legitimately had no running back to start. And I'm worried with your situation right now. You're going to fall into some sort of trap where you can't roster a full lineup because half your guys are hurt or not playable. I mean, I guess you could just play Tyreek Hill, but you're running.
No, he's on
a bye.
Yeah.
Yes. So your situation is kind of dire, Shovit. I'm sure we'll dig deeper into that. But without further ado, let's kick into the meat of things. We have our weekly start sits sent to us from our viewers, our friends, our folks that need the answers. So let's kick it off, Shovit, with quarterbacks. This week we have Jalen Hurts versus the Cleveland Browns or Baker Mayfield at the New Orleans Saints. Jalen Hurts does get his weapons back this week. Both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are expected to be back. And then obviously we know the situation with Baker. He's been fantastic. I think top 3 quarterbacks so far on the season. He's taking on a New Orleans Saints team that is going to be without Derek Carr. Is their offense going to have that same firepower to be able to make it a shootout back and forth? Where do you lean in this matchup here, Shovit?
I lean Jalen Hurts here because you're right. A.J. Brown is coming back. Devontae Smith is coming back. So you have to go with the quarterback that has a rushing upside that is going to be a lot better with his weapons out there. I know we've, shit on Jalen Hurts throughout the year, but I think he has a bounce back week. And the matchup is much more favorable, in my opinion, with Cleveland as opposed to the Saints. I think the Saints have a better pass defense than the Cleveland Browns do. So I'm leaning Jalen Hurts here.
Yeah, I think I echo that completely. The weapons are back. You drafted this guy as a top 3 quarterback for the rushing upside, for all of the playmakers he has that he can get the ball out in space too. So you just have to bank on Jalen Hurts being back with the weapons finally being healthy. So I would lean that way as well. We have Kirk Cousins, who is now, I think, the league leader in passing yards after dropping 500 last week on the Saints. He is at Carolina, one of the most favorable matchups this week. Do you start Kirk at Carolina or do you start Brock Purdy at Seattle? I'll kick this off. Seattle and San Francisco play on a short week on Thursday Night Football. Big matchup between divisions. The 49ers are at 2-3. They're desperate, searching for wins. So in this matchup, I don't dislike either of them. You're in a week where there are, bye weeks galore. So you have, I believe, 4 teams on bye. And so there are, situations where you're going to have to start one of these streaming options. So I actually don't mind either position, but if I had to give a choice, I would actually lean Kirk Cousins. It's the most favorable matchup right now. The Carolina Panthers, their defense just is bad on all levels. Is there a world where the rushing game can be so dominant for the Falcons that they don't need Kirk to throw the football in immense amounts? That certainly could be the case, and you run the risk of having that, and then Baker could be in a shootout with the Saints. But I'm still going to lean Kirk Cousins. I think that offense is finally flowing. Drake London's coming into his own. Darnell Mooney becomes a must-start on a week-to-week basis. And Kyle Pitts, is he finally resurrected? I don't know. It's hard to say after 1 or 2 weeks, but the jury's still out. But everything is trending upward for the Falcons and Kirk Cousins, so I lean Kirk there.
Yeah, sure. I lean Brock Purdy just because you just don't know what you're gonna get with the Carolina defense. The game may be out of hand in the second quarter, and who knows if they're gonna be able to put up points. Becomes a clock management type of game. I just don't trust the Seattle Seahawks defense either. I think that teams are able to put up points against the Seahawks, and Seahawks are also able to score. So I'm expecting a high scoring game. So I'm leaning Brock Purdy, but I'm with you. If you have to choose between Cousins and Purdy, that's a pretty good flip a coin and pick one. I'm leaning Purdy, you lean Cousins, but I don't hate either one of those starts.
Andy Dalton on the other side, taking on Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, or Jared Goff versus the Dallas Cowboys. This is an easy one for me. I'm taking Goff versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys haven't been able to stop anything. I'm expecting that game to potentially be a shootout as well because Dallas is not going to be able to run the football against this Detroit Lions defense. So they're going to have to pass the football. Lions are susceptible against the pass, and the Cowboys are basically susceptible against everything. Their defense sucks. So I lean Jared Goff. I think that is another game that's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, same. I lean Jared Goff as well. And more importantly, I don't lean Andy Dalton because I don't know what I'm going to get from Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. The first week that he came in, he looked really good. The second week, not so well. So you just don't know. There's a lot of variables there. Go with Jared Goff, one of the better offenses in this league. So, Goff for me, easy choice.
Lastly, for the quarterbacks, kind of an interesting question considering if you rostered both of these guys. Lamar Jackson versus the Washington Commanders or Joe Burrow against the New York Giants. Man, if you have both these quarterbacks right now, 6 weeks in, you're probably in a great spot. You should probably be looking to potentially trade one of these players. Lamar obviously offers you way more trade value, I think, than Joe Burrow does. So I wouldn't hate keeping Burrow and trying to field offers for Lamar. In this situation, how could you not start the number one quarterback in fantasy football? You have to start Lamar Jackson. He's taking on basically his counterpart in like the guy that looks most like him and Jayden Daniels. I think that rivalry could certainly become something as the two most prolific rushing quarterbacks in football. So first time they're facing off, I mean, you want a piece of that pie. I'm leaning Lamar.
Yeah, 100%, man. Joe Burrow, if you have him as a starter, you have to start him. Great start. Obviously, he's played lights off. The offense has played nothing as like the defense has been terrible for the Bengals, and hence their their rankings and standings show that. But the offense has been really well. So I think, all that being said, the rushing upside of Lamar Jackson is real. It is a pure threat. So give me Lamar Jackson here if I have to choose between Burrow and Lamar.
Running backs. Weird running back week considering we have so many good running backs on bye, so people are desperate. Chubby, would you start Justice Hill, potentially the number one receiving option for the Ravens against the Commanders? Or are you going to start Jerome Ford, who is splitting carries with Deontay Foreman in a way that none of us can quite predict? They are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Who would you lean here?
Man, I was looking at your notes and I'm just scratching my head at these choices, right? Justice Hill, which is a sure RB2, and Jerome Ford, RB2 is in depth chart wise, and Jerome Ford, who is like maybe RB2, maybe 1.5. You just don't know. But at the end of the day, you have to go with the guy that's getting more carries. To me, it's going to be Jerome Ford. I'm going to lean Jerome Ford. Justice Hill may find a way to get to the end zone as a passing touchdown or may get more targets, but Jerome Ford also gets targets as well, right? And so for me, there's more opportunities for Ford to get you higher points on average, where the boom potential might be higher for Hill. So I lean Ford in this situation.
Yeah, this is such a tough one for me. I think if I'm expecting the game flow of Washington versus the Ravens to be a high-scoring affair, Ravens' pass defense right now can't stop anybody, and the Commanders obviously are in shootouts all the time because their pass defense is really suspect too. If I think both these pass defenses are going to be sus and we're going to see a back-and-forth passing affair, I mean, part of me thinks Justice Hill is going to carve out kind of a nice week for him, but you're right. The fantasy is meant to, again, dictate process over results. The results in this at the end, I think Justice Hill could outperform Jerome Ford, but I think logically speaking, Philly also hasn't been a good defense even against the run. So I think, like you said, Jerome Ford catches passes as well. You can't go wrong in a bye week starting either one of these. I think the results are going to say that Justice Hill slightly outperforms Jerome Ford, but process tells me that you should start Jerome Ford. So flip a coin if you got to start either one. I mean, you're not going to hate it because they're both going to be on the field. And as much as Justice Hill just feels like a pass catcher, like going to be in there when in situational downs, those situations that he's in, Lamar Jackson actively looks for him to dump the ball off too. So I think he's carved out a nice role to be a solid bye week fill-in. Another running back situation here. DeAndre Swift, who's making me eat my words. First 3 weeks, he shit the bed. Last 2 weeks, he's been phenomenal. Which DeAndre Swift are we getting? He is taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars and that atrocious defense. It is in London. It is super early in the morning on Sunday. Do you take DeAndre Swift versus the Jaguars, Shobit, or Chuba Hubbard, who has been a resurrection the last couple of weeks, trying to push the Jonathan Brooks into not coming back sooner rather than later, or later rather than sooner? He is taking on the Atlanta Falcons. DeAndre Swift against the Jags in London, or Hubbard against the Falcons here?
If this is my team, I'm starting both of these guys, right? Like,
my
receiver.
Happily.
Yeah. But I have to choose one, and I'm going to lean DeAndre Swift here. I like what the Chicago Bears are doing. I think Caleb Williams is finding his receivers and doing some of the things that we saw in college football, that he's just extending plays and getting first downs, connecting with DJ Moore. So this offense as a whole, I like more than I like Carolina's offense. And like I said, with the Carolina game, it could kind of get out of hand really quick. So I don't know how often, how many running opportunities Hubbard will get. If you have any of these guys and outside of one another, they're great starts. But if I had to lean one, give me the guy in the better offense that I feel more comfortable with, and that's Swift in this scenario.
Yep, I agree with you. DeAndre Swift all the way. I didn't think I'd be saying that, but it's hard to overlook the usage and the production in that situation, right? We talk about DeAndre Swift splitting backfield or having, not enough snap count. He's playing 63%, 67%, 53, 66. So that's not someone you would feel super optimistic starting just because they're not on the field enough. But in his 67% of snaps played, he carried the ball 21 times. So clearly when he's on the field, they use him. The week before, he had 7 catches and still 16 carries. So his utilization is through the roof when he's on the field. They're using him in screen passes, and DeAndre Swift in open space is kind of where his bread and butter lies. So if they continue to utilize him that way, it's hard to not start him. Jacksonville's defense has been atrocious. So I think it is a really, really optimal matchup. So I lean DeAndre Swift. I don't think if you have Chuba Hubbard, you feel bad about starting him. He's been so damn good. Even in pass catching situations. So whether they're up against the Falcons or likely down against the Falcons, Chuba will be on the field. So you got to feel good about both, but I do lean Swift. The wide receiver show it. Chris Olave is taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Do you take Chris Olave against the Buccaneers? Do you take Brian Thomas Jr. against this scary Chicago Bears defense in Chicago? Or do you take Amari Cooper at the Philadelphia Eagles? You have to start 2 out of the 3. Give me your 2.
Oh, 2. Okay. All right. That makes things a lot more easier. All right. So out of these 3 players, Olave's situation is that Spencer Rattler is going to be his quarterback. So that's the uncertainty there. BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. is playing against a very stingy Chicago defense, right? So that's a tough matchup there. And Amari Cooper, his own problem is Deshaun Watson. But the matchups that I like the most are Philly and Tampa Bay. So I am leaning Olave and Cooper because defensively, the matchups that they're faced against are a lot easier than I think the Chicago Bears. Even though BTJ can get you that, really boom, one play, you're in, you're done, you're good. But I'm gonna go with Cooper, who I think has a bounce back game against a lackluster Philly pass defense, and Olave, who we'll see what we get from him. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, pass defense isn't that great either.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think there's a world where you and I eat our words because Brian Thomas Jr. even this week produces, and then at that point basically becomes a lineup block every single week. Certainly, he's got the talent, but if we bet on anything, it's been the Chicago Bears defense all season, and they've performed. They produced. They do a really good job of blanking the receivers on the outside, and Brian Thomas Jr. could be that this week. It is in London. You have that weird variable, that factor that could create some chaos and craziness. But if I'm banking on a situation. Let's talk about game script. You're not going to have Derek Carr. Most likely, Spencer Rattler is going to have his first career start, right? First career start against the Tampa Bay offense that has been able to put up a ton of points. We talked about Baker Mayfield being top 3. If the Saints are going to want to keep up, then Spencer Rattler is going to have to throw the football. The guy on the offense that gets open the most often, despite the fact that Shaheed has been the guy that's been demanding targets, is Chris Olave. So I think safety blanket, a guy that can be your first read in every single route, he's going to have the ability to get open. I think there could be a ton of volume for him. Could be like a lot of catches for not many yards, but that's something we'll take knowing that we have a rookie quarterback starting. And then, like you said, Amari Cooper is taking on such a terrible secondary show. But they're starting Cooper DeJean for the first time in the slot. So Cooper DeJean is getting his first career start in the nickel. I think the Browns, who have been so awful on offense, despite, get this, they have had the number 1 easiest strength of schedule for quarterbacks. Despite that, Deshaun Watson has been so bad. So if that tells you anything, I don't know what what optimistic outlook you could have. But Amari Cooper, despite all of the badness that's happened, he's still getting a shit ton of targets. He's leading the team in targets. He's their number one option. The one caveat to the targets that can be, debunked, and you have to kind of look behind the scenes, is 45% of his targets, show it, are deemed uncatchable. So there are a lot of phantom targets that, despite this guy being a target hog, Deshaun Watson is just not putting half the footballs in an area where he even has the ability to catch it. So that's something that you want to keep an eye on. You hope that connection continues to build. You hope that this is the week against a Philadelphia defense that is starting multiple rookie cornerbacks is a get-right spot. If not, Amari Cooper potentially will be traded. But I'm with you. The Brian Thomas Jr. against the Bears matchup alone is what scares me away from that, and I lean Olave and Cooper.
And Shaheed is questionable right now with a hamstring injury. So there's also that. More targets to come Olave's way if Shaheed's not there.
Here's an interesting question. With Nico Collins going down with a hamstring, what a good problem to have. Do you start Stefon Diggs or do you start Tank Dell against the New England Patriots? I'll kick us off. I mean, in an ideal world, you probably start both, right? If you have both of these receivers, unless you have three amazing running backs, I think you can flex Dell. You can start Stefon Diggs comfortably as a wide receiver one. Now, if you're starting one versus the two, one or the other, the only factor that's important here is the Patriots have Christian Gonzalez, who has been shadowing number one receivers. He has been really, really good at shadowing number one receivers. This was a situation where if Nico Collins was playing, Nico Collins would be my bust potential of the week. Despite how tremendously talented this guy is, I think Christian Gonzalez is a really, really talented man-on-man cornerback. I don't know who is going to get the grunt of Christian Gonzalez's work because both Tank Dell and Stefon Diggs can play both inside and out. So I think they're going to do a really good job of mixing and matching these players. So what I will say is production-wise, with Nico Collins already there, Stefon Diggs has been the guy that produced, right? So history says Stefon Diggs should continue to produce. Tank Dell is finally in an opportunistic situation where he no longer has to play third fiddle, but he can be second fiddle. So I think there's a world where both of these guys are going to produce. Pecking order tells me that I should still lean Stefon Diggs because he's produced this year already while Tank Dell has not. But do not be surprised if Tank Dell has a 20-plus point week.
Wow, that's a really good point. I didn't think about the shadow defense from Christian Gonzalez because I was leaning, give me the wide receiver one who I think will get more targets. Dell can get you that boom play, obviously, right down the middle and get you those points. But I'm going to go for targets here. And I still think that Diggs gets more targets than Dell does. So I'm leaning Diggs. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting problem. So we'll see. I'm going Diggs here.
Yeah, I think that might be something where you want to look a little deeper into the numbers. I probably will do a little bit more digging myself. So if I find something that is very concrete and definitive in the way Christian Gonzalez shadows versus which one of these two is most likely to fill the X spot, or if in fact these two guys are going to continue to play their role, Shovit, and Xavier Hutchinson is going to be the wide receiver 3, but he's going to play the outside X spot. And if that's the case, then maybe Christian Gonzalez has to, stay on one side and he gets the worst of the receivers. And at which point, both of these receivers should eat. So good problem to have, but it's hard not to lean with the receiver that's already produced, who's been a bona fide number one receiver in the past. And real quickly, tight end spot. It is a weird week for tight ends. I have a triple threat for you here. Taysom Hill for the Saints. He is dealing with bruised ribs, so keep that in mind. Injury is a concern. But if he does, in fact, play, Derek Carr is not playing. They have Rashid Shaheed injured now. So they are looking for offensive weapons to create something. These are the type of games where Taysom Hill will play quarterback, he'll play running back, he'll play receiver, he'll probably play tight end. So his usage should increase with no Derek Carr. Tyler Conklin versus the Buffalo Bills, a defense that has just the last couple of weeks not been able to stop anybody passing the football. Aaron Rodgers and them are, again, looking for functional offensive play. And keep in mind, Robert Saleh got fired. So every team, when they have that first week with a brand new random coach, there's that weird uplifting spirit that somehow causes their teams to play better. Not a tangible stat or anything to make decisions based off of, but just keep that in mind. It's just something in the back of your brain. Or Isaiah Likely, shove it. This is an interesting one. Isaiah Likely boomed week 1. He's still outproducing Mark Andrews, but neither his production or Mark Andrews' production is not where we wanted it to be the last couple of weeks, but they are taking on this Commanders team that we expect potentially a game to be in a shootout. You have Conklin, you have Likely, or you have Taysom Hill. Where are you leaning?
If Taysom Hill is not injured, I know he's coming back from a rib injury, and if he's playing, I'm going to lean Taysom Hill because you're right. They're going to need offense somewhere, and he could play running back. He could catch the ball. He may be even passing the ball for all you know. And so give me a piece of that pie. And, there was a couple of weeks back where he had like 2 touchdowns because he was just, getting the ball in at the red zone. So there's definitely a potential there. If he's injured, then give me Isaiah Likely. I think that the more opportunities that the Ravens have, any more possessions they have, they find a way to get this guy the ball. And I'm expecting a high scoring game between Washington and Baltimore Ravens. So it may not even be Likely. It may be some other tight end that they have. It may be Mark Andrews, but with more opportunities, Likely is likely to get the ball. So I like Likely's chances as number 2 here. And then Conklin, there's just, he might get the receptions, but not a lot of the touchdowns haven't been coming their way yet. So Hill, then Likely, then Conklin for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in that similar boat. I don't hate going Likely or Hill, specifically because, again, I think Likely will get into a shootout. And for whatever reason, Mark Andrews has built this rapport. I'm sorry, Lamar Jackson has built this rapport with Likely that he has seemed to have lost with Mark Andrews. Couple quick notes on Conklin, though. If you're in a situation where you're desperate, Conklin's somebody that's playing at over 90% of the snaps just about every week. He only played 82% last week because that game kind of got out of hand. He's last 3 weeks, 9 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets. He has 5 catches, 4 catches, and 6 catches. So he hasn't found the end zone yet. The offense has been very, very chaotic and shitty, but he's finding some form of consistency with Aaron Rodgers, who we've known in the past likes to utilize those tight ends. So this could be somebody that's deep stash. You're still waiting for a tight end to emerge and you feel confident starting week in and week out. So Conklin is somebody to think about, but in this situation, he definitely plays third fiddle. I'm in lockstep with you. Again, I think there's a world where you could lean Likely simply because we're expecting this game to be popping. We expect this to be offense, shootout, a lot of options. So I do like Likely, but I don't dislike Taysom Hill either. So one of those two, I would lean over Conklin. Pick your poison in that situation. But I would say more so monitor Taysom Hill's injury. If he's completely healthy, you feel better. But I know he had a rib injury on one side, and then he had another rib injury on the other side. So a guy who's, a bruiser like he is, has both sides of his ribs hurt. There's probably going to be some limitations there.
Yeah, and so my situation is Tyler Conklin versus Mark Andrews. And this may be the week that I am starting Mark Andrews. I know the targets are there for Conklin, but I'm going straight vibes, baby. We're going to get some points. And Mark Andrews, he could have had a touchdown last game. He was really close. You could have. And so I feel like this is the week.
I picked out Mark Andrews in my other league. He was dropped. I saw 1 week where I was like, this is more of the Mark Andrews of old. I want to stash him on my bench in case that player reemerges. Yeah. It is very likely. Isaiah, it is very likely that Mark Andrews emerges back to his old form simply because, Shobit, 6 weeks in, Lamar Jackson is playing incredible MVP heroic level ball. Derrick Henry is running the shit out of the football. And through 6 weeks, they still don't have a bona fide number 1 receiver. Probably Zay Flowers, right? Probably Zay Flowers. But the dynamic of what Zay Flowers gives you, you're still missing that big target, that safety blanket, the guy that Lamar likes to throw lobs and jump balls into the end zone. It has been Likely, but I still feel that there is still something for Mark Andrews to give the fantasy football world. This isn't the end. He's not just dying away. So I picked him up, holding out hope. This is a great matchup for either one of those guys. I don't hate starting Mark Andrews this week, believe it or not. So not a bad situation to be in, at least against the Commanders. Those are start sits, shove it. Let's kick it over to boom bust. The booms have been booming the last couple of weeks, so let's keep that train going. Bijan Robinson this week, shove it, is my boom of the week. Running back 21, he has yet to have a 20-point performance. I don't know if he has. He may have 1 touchdown on the season, but despite that, this is the week, man. He's taking on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. They're 31st against opposing running backs in fantasy scoring. Let me just give you some numbers, okay? Last week, DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson combined for 34 fantasy points. The week before that, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, 38 fantasy points. Alexander Madison of the Las Vegas Raiders had 11.9 fantasy points against the Steelers. J.K. Dobbins in week 2 had 19.6 fantasy points. And obviously, Alvin Kamara in week 1 had 19.5. I don't see a bust week for a running back at all. This is the team that you want to run the football against. I don't think the Falcons are going to struggle moving the ball. They should score at will. And I think Bijan Robinson finally has his 20-point week, which, let me piggyback off that real quick. Desperation bye weeks. if you need to start Tyler Algier,
That's there.
this is a great week to do so. I might be in that situation because I just told you I traded away Ramondre Stevenson and I got Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is on a bye, so I can't play him this week. So I don't have an RB2. I'm looking at a couple of options. You and I can discuss that later, but keep an eye out for Tyler Algier. This is a great matchup to start the backup running back who still could rumble into the end zone.
Yeah, solid. If not now, when? Right? Bijan Robinson, 31st overall against 31st rush defense. Yeah, he's got to get this.
Yeah, give me your boom, shove it.
My boom is going to be against the Carolina Panthers, Drake London. Same team, Atlanta Falcons, but I think Drake London and Kirk Cousins, they're just clicking right now, and Carolina defense is not very good. Drake London should get the targets and should find himself in the end zone this week. So Drake London is my boom potential this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty common theme. We're fading the Carolina Panthers right now. They have an inability to stop the run, stop the pass. They just can't stop any offenses. So we want to continue to eat with our players against the Carolina Panthers. My bust of the week, I wish I changed it because right before we started recording, we got news that this man might actually go on the IR and miss some weeks, kind of out of the blue. Michael Pittman Jr. was going to be my bust this week against the Tennessee Titans because he was going to draw the L'Jarius Sneed shadow, and L'Jarius Sneed has been an absolute shutdown, lockdown cornerback. He is not giving anything to anyone. Michael Pittman Jr. is their outside X receiver. He lines up wide 74% of all of his routes run, and Tennessee is number one against the opposing wide receivers. So if Michael Pittman Jr. is not going to play, enter Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is going to probably play on the outside. Maybe it's Adonai Mitchell, but right now it seems like the pecking order, Michael Pittman Jr., Downs, Alec Pierce. Downs is going to line up in the slot. He should still get his. But Alec Pierce, the perennial boom bust guy who catches a lot of bombs, I think there is a very, very unlikely chance that this man catches any sort of bombs against L'Jarius Sneed. So one side of the entire field is going to be shadowed. People may think, hey, Michael Pittman Jr. is injured. Let me just go ahead and insert the next receiver in that lineup. And Alec Pierce probably will not be that guy this week because he draws an incredibly difficult matchup.
Yeah. Solid. My bust for this week is going to be a guy who I talked about that you should start, but I think that you got to be scared to start him. Chuba Hubbard versus Atlanta. And I think it's all about the game script. I think Atlanta could score fast and score quick against the Carolina Panthers. And if that happens, you're expecting Chuba Hubbard to be there as in passing downs. Miles Sanders may even come in. So we just don't know what we're going to get from the Carolina Panthers team as a whole. So that's what worries me. So I think there is that bust potential. You still definitely start him, but he might end up being a bust for you. So Chuba Hubbard is a guy I am saying is bust.
I like it. Moving over to hidden gems, shove it. My hidden gem defensive streaming option this week is going to be the LA Chargers. They're taking on Denver Broncos and Bo Nix in Denver. We've seen how putrid that offense has looked. Chargers have had a pretty good defense so far. They're 13th. They had 14 points against Vegas week 1, 11 points against Carolina week 2, and they also had 8 points against Kansas City in week 4. They're coming off a bye week. So they are shutting down shitty offenses, but also only giving up 17 to Mahomes and the Chiefs in week 4. They take on Bo Nix. Bo Nix can't even throw the football down the field. I like the pass rush to get to him. I like the defense to be able to step up. So they are my hidden gem defense of the week. Who do you got for your defense this week?
My defense can be Texas defense, and you said it might be a trap game earlier. I'm kind of nervous now, but I've got Texas defense starting against the Patriots. You know, who's going to start? Drake May, maybe not. Like, I don't care who's at the quarterback position, but I just don't have any faith in this Patriots offense. Yes, this run game might cause an issues, but I don't think enough for the Texans defense to be able to step up, get you the sacks, get you maybe an interception here or there. So should be able to get you points this week.
Yeah, I think what I basically want to allude to that is I still think it's a good matchup. You're taking a defense with D'Amico Ryans that is kind of Brian Flores-esque in that it's disguising a lot of coverages to opposing quarterbacks. Well, you get Drake May in his first career ever start as a rookie quarterback. It's a pretty ideal matchup. I think, like you said, the Patriots should be able to run the football and move the football a little bit, but you're also expecting a rookie quarterback in his first ever start against a D'Amico Ryans-led defense to probably make some mistakes. Right. So they could move the football, but I still expect the Houston defense to be a serviceable streaming option this week. My streaming kicker this week, Showbit, I'm taking Jessie Bates of the Detroit Lions. People might think this is dumb. I thought this was dumb early in the season because Dan Campbell loves to go for it, man. He rarely ever kicks the football with his kicker. So why would you want to start the kicker for the Lions? Well, this is an interesting take, and this is kind of what I'm going with. They're taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. What have we learned this year about the Dallas Cowboys? They have a kicker who is an absolute cheat code in Brandon Aubrey. They have no problems kicking the football from 60 yards out, anything like that, right? So let's say this game gets into a situation where the Cowboys continue to move the football to like the 30, the 35-yard line. They keep taking points because Mike McCarthy hasn't been going for it. I think at some point, Dan Campbell has to be like, hey, this game flow is a little bit different. I can't just continue to go for it. The other team is taking 3 points. So if they are going to match 3 for 3, I think Dan Campbell is less likely to go for it in certain situations here, seeing the opposing kicker continue to kick it from 50, 55 yards. So I think that could sway him a little bit. It may be a reach, but this is a position where, again, we've seen the Cowboys continue to kick 50, 60-yarders. They're not going for it. So I'm expecting the opposing team to kind of match that energy because going for it so many times and the Cowboys continuing to take 3 points, it's going to end up working out in the Cowboys' favor. So that is why I like Jake Bates this week for the Lions.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And it's in Dome, inside Cowboy Stadium. So we like kickers in Dome. So my kicker for this week is going to be Greg Joseph versus Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's defense has been a big issue. So this may be a situation where Greg Joseph, that team has enough of a firepower to get to the field goal range, but they're not able to capitalize and finish off the game. So give me those chances there. I think Greg Joseph could have it three field goal type of day. So I like that as far as my kicker stats go.
Yeah, dude. Bengals defense has been really, really bad. Daniel Jones, disgusting. But if you're looking for a disgusting streaming quarterback option, there are worse quarterbacks out there, believe it or not. So Danny Dimes, who I think actually I'm going to be facing this week in that league I told you about, my other league, because I picked up Jared Goff. This guy's got desperate, and he picked up Daniel Jones. So I might eat my own words. Guy starts Daniel Jones. I tell him it's a disgusting start, ends up dropping 25. Also, side note, I am also facing that same guy who traded Kyron for Dobbins. So I'm facing J.K. Dobbins this week. He's taking on the Denver Broncos, but just leave it to J.K. Dobbins and all the karma people for him to just absolutely assassinate Denver and beat me. I'm playing against him in both leagues, by the way. Ayush also has J.K. Dobbins, and I don't get to start Kyron Williams because he's on a bye. So This could be the karma gods this week, just totally taking J.K. Dobbins and shoving him down my throat. So time will tell. That is it for Hidden Gems. Let's end the episode, shove it, with our weekly Pickems. Shishot is kicking things off this week. He is 3-2. You are also 3-2. I am 2-3, man. I can't get a pick right to save my life right now. Shishot this week is taking your Pittsburgh Steelers. They are going to travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. They just announced that Aiden O'Connell is starting again. There is no Devontae Adams. Alexander Madison is getting the starting job. I mean, there is just nothing to like about that offense. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and that team as a whole should just feast. So Shishot is taking on the Steelers this week, or taking the Steelers this week. Shove it. Who's your weekly pick'em?
Yeah, give me Texans at New England. I think there's a very low chance that the Texans end up losing to the Patriots this week. Coming off with a rookie quarterback for the Patriots, there's just no way they can compete with the Texans' firepower and the offense that they have. Minus Nico Collins, they still have enough on their team to be able to beat this New England Patriots. So give me Texans this week.
I like it. And I need to get back on the win column. So I'm going to do what we did basically this entire episode, fade the Panthers. So I'm going to take Kirk Cousins and the Falcons to get the dub in Carolina against the Panthers to move myself to 3-3. So Shishot has the Steelers against the Vegas Raiders. You have the Texans against the Patriots, and I have the Falcons against the Panthers. Ironically enough, we all pick teams that are on the road traveling. Let's see if that becomes a factor or not. Road team favorites never really works out well. So we will see. That is it, man. That is the episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. You can listen to us everywhere you get your podcasts, socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at The Only Playbook. That's my Twitter handle right there. That's Shobit's Twitter handle. Follow us. Reach out to us if you have any other questions, anything we did not cover. Good luck this week, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.